There was a man in Canada who didn't know that latex paint can't be mixed with oil paint, so he combined the two to save space in the garage. The result? Not only did the paint mixture not dry after 3 days, it also puffed up like failed sourdough, smelled like forgotten milk, and stuck to everything except the actual wall. That man was me. And ever since then I realized, in the world of DIY, the most dangerous thing isn't the saw, the drill, or the hammer. It's confidence without knowledge. And nothing exposes your naivety faster than an open can of paint. So I started collecting a list of painting hacks. Not because I'm good at it, but because I used to be really bad. And I paid for it with 3 square meters of floor and a brand new pair of pants. I used to stir paint with chopsticks until I realized my wrist wasn't designed for heavy-duty work. And that can of paint wasn't just thick, it was taunting me like, "Go ahead, stir me if you dare." I tried everything, shaking, rolling, even slapping the bottom like I was trying to summon the spirit of color. Useless. Until I came up with an idea that OSHA definitely wouldn't approve of. I took a wooden stick, tied 3 zip ties to the end in a propeller shape, and attached it to a drill. 5 seconds later, the paint was spinning evenly. My wrist was intact, and I started doubting the entire stir stick industry for scamming us all. Anyone who's ever painted old furniture knows, the rougher the surface, the more blotchy the paint job. No matter how much effort you put in, the result still looks like ink spreading on a paper towel. I once tried painting over a deep grain wooden chair, and when I stepped back, it looked like I had created a thermal map of Asia. So I came up with a method. First, I grabbed a small brush and marked where I needed to cut the handle. Cut along the line. Now I was left with the brush head, looking like some DIY weapon in a post-apocalyptic movie. Place the cut handle end onto a plastic bottle cap and trace the shape. It was like tailoring, but for a bottle cap hole. Cut along the traced line to make a round hole that fit the brush handle snugly. Inserted the brush head into the hole and sealed it with hot glue. It reminded me of dental fillings. Only if the filling fails, the paint floods out like a waterfall. Split the bristles in 2. This step is crucial. It helps spread paint evenly over uneven surfaces. Used a drill to make 2 small diagonal holes into the brush handle, aiming through the bristles. Looks weird, but trust me, the results are surprisingly effective. Poured paint into an empty plastic bottle, then screwed on the cap. Done. Now you've got a mini automatic brush. Cheap, effective. And no need to buy those special surface brushes that are only special because they're stupid expensive. Oh, and a friend of mine once tried painting a cement wall with a regular brush. 2 hours of struggle later, the wall was still blotchy, and his hand was covered in broken bristles. He switched to wall decals after that. I bet someone watching this video sees themselves in that story. Here's an age-old issue with paintbrushes. You pull the brush out and the paint drips like it's crying from abandonment. To end this tragedy, I tied a rubber band across the mouth of the can, like this. Before pulling the brush out, I lightly wiped the bristles on the rubber band. Every excess drop stayed in the can, instead of parading down onto the floor. By the way, back when I was clueless, every time I painted, the floor ended up looking like modern art. This next trick is for anyone who wants razor-sharp paint lines, especially when using tape to create edges. Before painting, I stuck 2 strips of tape parallel on a wooden board, but on the left strip, I brushed on a thin layer of waterproof sealant along the tape's edge before painting over both. When I peeled the tape off, the difference was crystal clear. The side with sealant had a clean line, sharp like it was cut with a blade. The other side? Bleedy, jagged, like someone with insomnia tried to paint it by hand. So if you've ever been let down by bleeding paint or smudged edges, this simple trick could save you from repainting everything from scratch. Now this is a situation many people run into. A brush that looks perfectly fine until the bristles are stiff as if coated in 3-day-old hair gel. Most folks would just toss it and buy a new one. But if you've ever paid for a high-quality brush, you know how painful that feels. Instead of tossing it, I poured some butyl acetate into a jar. I started by attaching a screw into the end of my drill, then gently screwed it into the handle of the brush, right where the hole was pre-drilled like in the picture. A few spins later, the brush was locked in like it was born for this. Next, I dipped the bristles into the butyl acetate, and then pulled the trigger. The whole brush spun like crazy in the solvent, shaking off the dried paint that clung on like concrete. In less than a minute, the brush was soft again, ready for its next job. A dramatic comeback. No need to throw it out, just one screw and a light squeeze. A small but incredibly useful hack if you've ever gotten annoyed by your brush sinking into the paint can like it's trying to dodge work. I screwed a small screw into the handle, slightly higher up, so every time I paused, I just rested the brush on the rim of the can. The screw held it up, bristles floating above the paint. Ready to use again? Just lift, clean, dry. No messy hands, no fishing for brushes like lost socks in muddy puddles. And now we move on to the next tip. Here's a nifty trick if your paint can doesn't have a lid, or the lid is looser than a summer fling. Just cut off the top of a plastic bottle and flip it upside down over the mouth of the can. Then use a heat gun to shrink the plastic around the rim. Under heat, the plastic tightens like it was made to fit. Now you've got yourself an airtight DIY paint cap. $0, more paint shelf life. This last tip is for anyone who's ever gone mad trying to paint wall corners. Why? Because wide brushes are too big, small brushes too weak, and right angles act like they're hiding from paint. But just one diagonal snip on the bristles, like this, gives you a corner-dedicated brush. The angled tip slips deep into corners without leaving drips or missed spots. It's like using a box cutter to outline your edges. Tidy, precise, no more, no less. Bottom line, don't toss your brush, modify it. No corner too tricky, as long as you've got scissors and 30 spare seconds. If you found these tips useful, or at least made painting feel less rage-inducing, don't forget to leave a like or follow the channel. Who knows, the next video might be exactly what you're looking for. And if not, just think of it as a documentary about your own clumsy moments. See you next time.